This is Kara Tucker from the Public Library of Cincinnati and Hamilton County. Today we are remembering the forgotten tornado near the 50th anniversary of the 1969 tornado that swept through pretty much Cincinnati's northern suburbs at the time. And today we're going to be talking about your memories, and we'll start off with, can you tell me your full name, please?
Dwight Gardner. I was born in Cincinnati in 1949. Lived here until I moved to South Carolina to take a job with the University of South Carolina as a librarian, and worked there until I retired 8 years ago. When my parents passed away, I inherited the home that was hit by the tornado, and we go back and forth between Columbia and Cincinnati, divide our time that way.
Very nice. So can you tell me where the house is, or you don't have to give the exact address,
Yeah.
but and what part of the community, so we have an idea of kind of the path, I guess.
Sure. It is just a couple blocks down from the intersection of Miami and Camargo. It's on a half acre of land and has many trees now. It had many trees at the time, many of which were blown over. It's right at the area where the new nursing home is being built, just about a block away from that. The Camargo Road's been in a state of total disrepair for months now. They put in new storm sewers, then new sidewalks, and now they're going to repave the road itself. And they promise that'll all be done by the fall.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully we won't be doing a road construction oral history at some point.
Yeah.
So in 1969, how long had you lived at the house for?
We moved in 1957.
Okay.
And I attended Madera schools, went to the University of Cincinnati and the University of Kentucky for my library degree. Is that where you went? Great.
So you lived there with your family. Did you have siblings?
I was an only child.
Oh, okay, I see. So I guess you must have probably spent a lot of time in the trees that eventually would meet their fate.
Yes, yes.
Well, so the day of the storm was a Saturday.
Yes.
And was there any indication that the weather was going to kick up, or were people talking about it, or what was the atmosphere like that day?
It was just a typical summer day, pretty hot and humid. I do not remember any tornado warnings. I thought back on that afternoon and cannot remember any radio or TV announcements that there was any possibility of tornadoes. It just kind of came very suddenly out of nowhere. We were with my grandmother and grandfather, and my parents had gone to Mariemont to a movie, so they were quite shocked when they got home and found everything destroyed. So we were kind of out on the front porch looking at the tree being blown over double.
Oh, wow.
And my grandmother says to me, boys, because Ernie was with me,
And who is he?
you better get inside. So we hadn't been in more than a minute and it hit. And she was in the dining room. Ernie and I were in a little hall that led to the basement. We never had time to make it to the basement.
Wow, that's quick.
And my grandfather was there with us. So laid on the floor, and just this horrible strong wind blew through the house. But it was all over probably within 2 minutes. And my grandmother was injured by flying glass.
Oh, wow.
Her legs were cut up. And
Was that a result of part of the trees falling, or was it just wind, or?
well, the house was sort of in ground zero, because not only was the porch blown down, but we had picture windows in the dining room and living room, and they were both blown out. side of the house that had the dining room had major damage, as did the living room. And the damage was, very extensive. We could not live in the house after that.
Oh, wow. Did you
We
have to?
moved in with my grandmother,
I
who
see.
lived in Montgomery.
Was that the one that was visiting at the same time when it hit?
No, my other grandmother.
Okay.
And lived with her until Thanksgiving. It took that long to repair it.
Wow. Is that something that your family did on their own, or did they have carpenters, or?
Well, we, it was insured, so we hired a contractor,
there
and
you go.
he did it. My mother was disappointed in that we had 2 chimneys on the house, and one of them was blown over, and the contractor decided he didn't think we needed a second chimney.
Oh, no.
So, it wasn't functional at that point. The house was built in 1880, so it's one of the older homes in Madeira,
Oh, lovely.
and we think it has a lot of historical value.
Definitely. And that's interesting to have that piece of information about the history of the building itself, the 2 chimney factor.
Yeah.
But anything else change or different about it?
Well, they did not replace the picture windows.
Okay.
They put in just standard windows there. And the porch pretty much went back to the way it was. So my uncle lives on Miami Avenue, so he came over and was helping us kind of deal with it all. But we spent the night there and then moved in with my grandmother the next day.
Were there other people that were displaced the same way, or did you get hit particularly hard, it sounds like, in your neighborhood?
Yeah, the next door to our home, it was an old garage dating back to the 30s, I would say, where they repaired cars. And in front of that was a small apartment. I think at one point that structure was actually a gas station, but they converted it into an apartment, and an old couple lived there. I'd say they were in their late 70s. And that house was basically destroyed too.
Oh, wow.
I think she moved in with her daughter at that point.
That's quite an impact then.
It was, definitely. And the St. Gertrude Festival was going on that very evening. And my other uncle was attending that. And I often wonder why the tent just didn't blow over to Milford or something. But I don't think it did. But it really damaged the tower that St. Gertrude has. I think it bent the cross and everything.
Are there any other points in the community that you remember were impacted physically that way too?
I think the trailer park had some damage as well. Oh, and the factory across the street. The roof of that ended up in our front yard.
Oh, wow.
And all that insulation was over in the grass, and trying to clean that up was such a nasty process.
Oh, I'm sure.
Itchy. And we had a lot of trees to grub out, and my father's brothers came over, and they had chainsaws and everything. They helped us cut it up.
And I presume where our tree slice here has come
Yes,
from. Can you
indeed.
tell me a little more about it?
Well, I think it was one of the maple trees in the backyard. And I guess it was a convenient size to make into his memorabilia there.
And I see it has a hook, a little mechanism to hang. Has it been hanging somewhere ever since, or?
It's been hanging on that back porch ever since. And I was eating breakfast this morning. I thought, well, that would be a nice item to bring in.
Absolutely, very unique. When you're thinking of ephemera, that's a very good one. So, and I see it has the date and it also has the time on it as well. So it was about 7 p.m. when you guys ran indoors, it sounds like, too.
Yeah.
Well, are there any other lasting impressions or anything else you'd like to share about the tornado?
Let's see. I remember Governor Rhodes came to Madera to view the damage. And he was standing out there on Camargo Road and pontificating, and I remember he said something to the effect that, oh, this is not a disaster area. And that really made my grandmother mad.
I'm sure.
That's one of my memories of it.
A little higher up in the community perspective. That's interesting. All right. Well, if that's everything, I'd like to thank you for your time and for sharing your memories. And this will be included on our digital library as an oral history. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.